Welcome to Lost Treasures, the treasure of Dutch Schultz. Dutch Schultz had a reputation for a white-hot temper and brutality, but in the end it was his loose lips and delirious deathbed ramblings that cemented his legend as a prolific mobster. Over a career of bootlegging, racketeering, extortion, robbery, tax evasion, gang warfare and more, Schultz was identified as public enemy number one by President Hoover in 1933 after the fall of Chicago's Al Capone. During his career, Schultz amassed a fortune worth over $200 million, which has never been found. This mystery still drives modern-day treasure seekers to the Catskills in Phoenicia with shovels and a mission. Let's first explore how Schultz amassed such a fortune, and then explore the different legends about where his treasure may still be buried today. Arthur Simon Flegenheimer, more famously known as Dutch Schultz, was born on the 6th of August 1902 in the Bronx, New York City. His parents were German Jewish immigrants who struggled to make ends meet in their new homeland. His father, Hermann Flegenheimer, supposedly abandoned his family. This traumatized Schultz, who spent the rest of his life denying that his father had abandoned him. The emotional and financial strain of being raised in a single-parent household, coupled with the harsh realities of life in a working-class neighbourhood, shaped his early experiences. It instilled in him a fierce determination to rise above his circumstances and seek a better future. Schultz dropped out of school in the 8th grade to help support himself and his mother. He worked as a feeder and pressman for the Clark Loose Leaf Company, Caxton Press, American Express, and Schultz Trucking in the Bronx between 1916 and 1919. During this time, Schultz also commenced his criminal career, working at a neighbourhood nightclub, robbing craps games before turning to burglary. Eventually he was caught breaking into an apartment and sent to the prison on Blackwell's Island, now called Roosevelt Island. He proved to be such an unmanageable prisoner that he was transferred to a work farm in West Hampton, Long Island. After he was recaptured following an escape, he had an extra 2 months added to his 15-month sentence. Schultz was released on parole on the 8th of December 1920 and went back to work at Schultz Trucking. With the start of Prohibition, Schultz Trucking began smuggling liquor and beer into New York City from Canada. During this time, Schultz began associating with known criminals, including Bronx's Frog Hollow Gang, which was known for giving Schultz his nickname. Schultz liked the name because, as he put it, Arthur Flegenheimer was too long for newspaper headlines. Some of the criminals he met were organised crime bosses, such as Charlie Lucky Luciano and Jack Legs Diamond. After a disagreement with Schultz Trucking, he left and went to work for them. In the mid-1920s, Schultz went to work as a bouncer at the Hub Social Club, a small speakeasy in the Bronx, owned by a gangster named Joey No. The two soon formed their own gang, opened more illegal drinking joints around the Bronx, and ran bootlegging operations for New York City bars. The operation earned them both a lot of money, even though their brew was known for being the most horrendous tasting stuff in town. But don't think for a minute their success was due to convincing sales spiel. Dutch and No were brutal. They would go to speakeasies and threaten to beat up proprietors who didn't buy their beer. One saloon owner, Joe Rock, foolish enough to refuse, got hung by his thumbs from a meat hook. A rag dipped in a gonorrhea sore was placed over his eyes. It eventually blinded him. Afterward, the Noel Schultz gang met little opposition as they expanded. Though the Noel Schultz operation flourished in the Bronx, the pair saw plenty of opportunities across the river in Manhattan. They soon expanded their operations and moved their headquarters to Manhattan's Upper West Side. However, this brazen move led to a bootleg war with New York's Irish mob led by Jack Legs Diamond. In retaliation for invading his territory, Diamond ordered a hit on No, who was gunned down outside the Chateau Madrid in October 1928. Though No managed to survive the ambush, he died a month later. Crushed by losing his friend and mentor, Schultz retaliated by coordinating the killing of Diamond's close associate, Arnold Rothstein, a kingpin in the Jewish mob, in November 1928. He also coordinated the killing of Diamond himself in 1931. Schultz also had to deal with conflicts within his own gang. In 1930, one of Schultz's enforcers, Vincent Cole, demanded to be made an equal partner. This was because Schultz's gang members received a flat salary instead of the customary percentage from the take, a unique arrangement compared to other major gangs in organised crime. When Schultz refused, Cole formed his own crew with the ultimate goal of murdering Schultz and taking over his territory. In the bloody gang war that followed, Cole lost his older brother Pete and earned the nickname Mad Dog from the press after a child was killed during a botched assassination attempt committed by his gang. In February 1932, Cole was lured into a trap. While he was taking a call in the drugstore phone booth, gunmen entered the store and machine-gunned him to death. With the end of Prohibition imminent, and eventually confirmed on the 5th of December 1933, Schultz needed to diversify and find new sources of income. He turned his attention to the Harlem numbers racket. This was a form of illegal gambling or illegal lottery played mostly in poor and working class neighbourhoods in the United States, wherein a bettor attempts to pick 3 digits to match those that will randomly be drawn the following day. For many years the winning number was the last 3 digits of the handle, the amount horse race gamblers placed on race day at a major racetrack, published in racing journals and major newspapers in New York. Along with the Harlem numbers racket, Schultz began extorting New York restaurant owners and workers. Schultz forced restaurant owners to join the Metropolitan Restaurant and Cafeteria Owners Association, an employer association that Schultz had founded. Those who refused to join the association were faced with exorbitant wage demands from workers' unions Schultz had made deals with, followed by strikes and stink bomb attacks. The Metropolitan Association would then step in to arrange settlement of the strike with a sweetheart contract for low wages contingent on the employer joining the association. Schultz successfully extracted thousands of dollars of tributes and dues from the terrorised restaurant owners. At its peak, Schultz's criminal empire was making more than $20 million a year. But like Al Capone before him, Schultz was highly vulnerable to the newly enacted federal income tax law. The federal government began to pursue Schultz. Finally, the feds indicted Schultz on income tax evasion charges in January 1933. He became a fugitive and spent months hiding out before finally surrendering in November 1934. The following year he was tried twice for income tax evasion, but 2 juries could not convict him. The first case ended with a hung jury, and he was acquitted in the second due to lack of evidence. Many suspected that Schultz had bribed or otherwise extorted jurors. Subsequently, New York Special Prosecutor Thomas E. Dewey wanted to prosecute Schultz for his illegal numbers racket. During these trials, Schultz's defence costs were high, and he reduced the commissions he paid to those running his rackets to bolster what he called the Arthur Fleckenheimer Defence Fund. This angered many of his gang members, who held a mass protest meeting and declared a strike of sorts. When Schultz refused to meet their demands, his cash flow dried up, and the mobster was forced to back down. However, his actions permanently damaged his relationships with both his own gang members and other associates. One of his chief lieutenants soon met with Charlie Lucky Luciano, who, despite Schultz's working for him in the past, planned to take control of Schultz's activities. Dewey didn't give up on pursuing Schultz. This led Schultz to conclude that the only way to get Dewey off his back was to kill him. The National Crime Syndicate, also known as the Commission, who were a confederation of New York City mobsters and controlled virtually all the crime in the Manhattan area, unanimously agreed against the idea, arguing that a Dewey assassination would precipitate a massive law enforcement crackdown. Schultz was enraged and said he would kill Dewey anyway and walked out of the meeting. Afterwards, the Commission hired the infamous group Murder Inc. to carry out a hit on Schultz. On the 23rd of October 1935, Schultz, along with Bernard Lulu Rosenkrantz, his bodyguard, Otto Burnman, his accountant, and Abe Lando, his chief lieutenant, were having dinner at the Palace Chop House restaurant in Newark, Jersey, one of Schultz's headquarters. 2 Murder Inc. hitmen named Charles the Bug Workman and Emmanuel Mendy Weiss entered the restaurant. The pair opened fire on the Schultz gang members, hitting all 4 before they fled. None of the men died at the scene and were transported to the hospital. However, all would die in the next 2 days. Schultz had been hit in the spleen, stomach, colon and liver. Afterwards, he lingered for hours but died on the 24th of October 1935 at the age of 33. Throughout his time as a mobster, Schultz was discreet about his wealth. Despite making a fortune from his illicit activities, he was known to be extremely frugal. Unlike other gangsters of the time, he didn't dress flashy, tip lavishly, or purchase expensive homes or cars. In fact, he was known to be very tight with his money, except where bribery was concerned. However, no money, goods, investments, bonds, or anything else of value were found when he died. Prior to his death, whether through fear of going to jail or because he was anticipating his death, Schultz had a special airtight and waterproof safe made. The safe has also been described as a steel-plated strongbox. It was supposedly made by a Bronx ironworker called Timothy Keel, with dimensions of 3 foot by 2 foot by 18 inches. At a hideaway in Connecticut, Schultz, his bodyguard Lulu, and a man named Marty Crompier rendezvoused in April 1933. They packed bundles of $1,000 bills, negotiable Liberty bonds, gold coins, diamonds, and other gems into the safe. Schultz had the only key. The contents was estimated to be worth $7 million at the time. In today's money, the contents could be worth $200 million, depending on the mix of cash, bonds, gold, diamonds, etc. Schultz and Lulu then supposedly drove the safe to a location somewhere in the Catskill Mountains in Phoenicia, New York, and buried it. Phoenicia was a town Schultz knew from his bootlegging days. The location of where they buried the treasure is unknown, but there are 2 main stories or legends about where it could be buried. The first legend is that Schultz and Lulu, on their way to Phoenicia along Route 28, stopped and buried the treasure between the roadway and the Esopus Creek. Schultz swore Lulu to secrecy and then supposedly marked the site by carving an X into the trunk of a nearby pine tree. This legend goes on to explain that supposedly Lulu couldn't keep his mouth shut. He told his friend Crompier where the treasure was buried. Some say that Lulu even drew a map for Crompier. After Schultz and Lulu died at the Palace Chop House, Crompier was the only man who knew where the treasure was buried. He, however, did not have time to recover Schultz's treasure. On the night of Schultz's murder, 2 henchmen, including Jacob Gura Shapiro, caught up with Crompier at a barbershop in New York City and gunned him down. Many believe that if Lulu did draw a map for Crompier, Shapiro would have taken it and potentially sought out the treasure for himself. The second legend is a more elaborate version of events. An individual, who was 80 years old at the time, claimed to have first-hand knowledge of the day Schultz hid his treasure. This account claims that the treasure was buried the very afternoon Schultz and his gang were killed at the Palace Chop House. Schultz and one of his men, probably Lulu, stopped for lunch at the Phoenicia Hotel in the centre of town. They left around 1 o'clock, got in a car and drove half a block, where they made a right-hand turn onto Route 214. They proceeded along the Stony Clove Creek for about 8 miles and stashed the money beneath a skull-shaped rock formation known as the Devil's Face. The 2 men were back in Phoenicia by 3 o'clock that afternoon and returned to Newark for their fateful rendezvous with Bug Workman that evening. Now there are 2 main debates with the first legend, the one which believes the treasure is buried next to some pine trees in between Route 28 and Esopus Creek. Firstly, was there a map? And secondly, if there was a map, did Shapiro use it to obtain Schultz's treasure for himself? In 2005, one treasure hunter by the name of Gary Bennett announced that he had a copy of the map Lulu supposedly drew for Crompier. The same treasure hunter also published a photo stating that he'd found a pine tree near the location of the X on the map, with 1934 carved into the trunk. Assuming the 1934 relates to a year, this finding appears to give this legend some credibility, both in terms of the existence of a map, the location of the treasure, and the timeline, given the fact Schultz surrendered to the feds in November 1934. However, to date no one has validated the authenticity of the map, nor the 1934 engraving. If Shapiro did get hold of the map, assuming one existed, then it's conceivable that he could have found Schultz's treasure. It is likely that Shapiro would not have admitted to finding it, since the government was nailing gangsters for criminal tax violations, and he did not want to share the spoils with anyone else, especially other gangs. In terms of the second legend, The main debate appears to be whether it was in fact the Devil's Face where Schultz hid his treasure, or the Devil's Tombstone. The Devil's Face is a rock formation 150 foot high, whereas the Devil's Tombstone is a large boulder at ground level, slightly closer to town and therefore considerably more accessible. They are however both about 8 miles from the turning onto Route 214. We may never know which legend, if either, is correct. Whilst on his deathbed however, Schultz, who was delirious with a fever of over 106 degrees, gave a series of ramblings and cryptic statements, including several references to buried treasure that supported one or both of the legends. Police stenographer John Long noted all the ramblings down and even noted that there may be a treasure buried in Phoenicia. It wasn't long before the dying words of Schultz made their way into the newspapers, and everyone in the world soon knew about the existence of Schultz's treasure. Schultz is known to have said, "John, please, did you buy me the hotel for $1 million? I'll get you the cash out of the box. There's enough in it to buy 4 or 5 more. Lulu, drive me back to Phoenicia. Don't be a dope, Lulu. We better get those Liberty bonds out of the box and cash 'em. Sure, it was Danny's mistake to buy 'em, and I think they can be traced. Danny, please get me in the car. Kindly take my shoes off. They're not off. There's handcuffs on 'em. Wonder who owns these woods. He'll never know what's buried in 'em." These ramblings appear to support that Schultz buried his treasure in Phoenicia, and that he stored his treasure in a box containing at least cash and Liberty bonds. The reference to woods may give some further credibility to the first legend, that Schultz had buried his treasure in between Route 28 and Esopus Creek. Schultz is also known to have said, "Don't let Satan draw you too fast. Over $1 million, $5 million, look out. Please get me up. If you do this, you can go on and jump right here in the lake." These ramblings again appear to support the existence of some treasure. Many presume these ramblings to be a coded reference to Phoenicia, which has several landmarks that reference the devil, including the Devil's Tombstone and the Devil's Face. The Devil's Face landmark overlooks a small lake. The same lake is between the Devil's Tombstone and the Devil's Face. Schultz's lost treasure could very well have been buried between those two locations. Overall, the ramblings don't appear to bring any more or less credibility to either legend. It is not clear which one, or whether either of them is true. Despite the uncertainty, many people have still searched for Schultz's treasure in Phoenicia over the years. In recent years, the mystery has been featured in films and documentaries. Psychics have even been utilised. One man spent years of his life walking up and down the nearby tracks of the Ulster and Delaware Railroad with a shovel. Eventually, his excessive digging unlevelled the tracks, and railroad officials had to ask him to stop. To date, there is no confirmation that the treasure has been found. This could be because the person who found it wants to keep it secret and keep it for themselves. It could be because the treasure does not exist, or maybe the treasure does exist but has not yet been found. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, share and comment below, especially if you know more about the whereabouts of Schultz's treasure. Be sure to also subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon to make sure you don't miss the next video, where I explore another lost treasure. Thank you.